We are the Cat's Whiskers, and this is my top line. Hello and welcome to the very first edition of my top line from the Cat's Whiskers. I'm Jonathan Bullard. And our first guest on my top line, choosing his favourite line over 40 years of watching the Nottingham Panthers, is someone who is well known to Cat's Whiskers podcast listeners and also regarded as one of the top hockey writers in the UK. It is, of course, Mr. Paul Balm.
Hello, Jono, and thanks for having me.
Great to have you along. So we'll crack straight into it. And just for the format for those who are listening for the first time, you choose a netminder, 2 defensemen and 3 forwards from the team you've been watching throughout your career as a hockey fan, the Nottingham Panthers. 40 seasons, is it now?
I think this is the 40th. Yeah, it's certainly 40 years this December.
Plenty to go at for you.
Yes, yeah, almost too many at times, to be honest. I mean, I've got a list here in front of me. Clearly, that's why you've invited me along here. Is it right? I don't know. I have changed about. There are still some that I'm not sure about, but I've got my list. We'll stick with that for now. But I know tomorrow morning, if you get any messages from me tomorrow asking to re-record because I've changed my mind, just ignore them.
Yeah,
it's just because
definitely not.
No.
We spent too much time on this already, as it is.
Exactly. It is just that. It's just that feeling of different moods. You know, if I'd have done this a month ago, some of them may have changed. Some of them are just carved in stone. It's the odd one you think.
Of course, as well as looking at your 6 choices for your top line, we'll also be revealing your favourite game, your honourable mentions, your player from another team who you would have loved to have seen play for the Panthers, your favourite goal, and also your favourite moment as well, which we will end on later, so hang around for that. But we're going to start off right at the top, and the netminder. So, Paul, who is the netminder you've chosen?
It's got to be Craig Kowalski.
So Craig Kowalski, 275 games for the Nottingham Panthers. In his career with the Panthers, he won 4 Challenge Cups, 3 playoffs and 1 Elite League title. And, of course, everyone remembers the 2012-13 season where the Panthers won the title. An incredible record of 1.96 goals against average and a .922 save percentage. So, Paul, why particularly Kowalski?
I boiled this down easily to 2 different players. It could have been. It was either going to be Kowalski or Trevor Robbins. And I think both of them equally as good choices in a lot of ways. But I think for me, it was Kowalski's style. That no-nonsense way he played. He could pull out the big saves and did for when he needed to. But it was just that no-nonsense style. He didn't always pull out the big saves because he didn't need to. His positioning was so good. The way that if he had to catch the puck, his glove would snap out, catch the ball, and that would be it. There was no windmilling to show the whole crowd that he'd managed to catch the puck. His arm came up, caught the puck, and that was it. And he was you got those things that you want from a netminder. He was dependable, he was solid, he just got on with it. And he's the only netminder I think I've ever seen score a goal.
That's true, of course. A pre-season game against Asiago, I think it was. And
he was, I think. Yeah.
And flicked it straight down the ice into the empty net. It's available on YouTube if you want to see it. But also, I think the thing that sticks out for me with Kowalski from his 5 seasons is his consistency. His lowest save percentage was .910. So still 91%. His highest goals against average was 2.8. And just an incredibly consistent netminder throughout his career in Nottingham.
That is, ultimately, part of why I chose him. You knew what you always knew what you were getting with Craig Kowalski. He turned up, he'd be solid for you. going back to Trevor Robbins again as a comparison. People talk about netminders being strange, and I don't think there are many stranger than Robbins. But I mean, he didn't used to talk to his wife from about the afternoon of the game before, the day before, apparently, and he sort of improved through games. You might give up a couple of early ones, and sort of improve, the games, and he got a bit of a temper at times. I remember him.
As Ian Cooper found out, yeah.
Yes, he speared him in the crown jewels, as I remember. But I'm not saying Kowalski, didn't have his off nights or didn't have a temper, but you just knew that if you got Kowalski in it, you knew what you were going to get night after night after night, and that what you were getting was quality at a consistent level. It's just what I want to see in an netminder.
You get a lot of comparisons between those Panthers fans who were around to see Trevor Robbins, and it is getting an age-old debate now. Is it who was the best, Trevor Robbins or Craig Kowalski? But do you think it's fair to compare? Because you had Robbins who was in the Ice Hockey Super League, arguably the best standard of hockey we've ever seen in this country, and then you had Kowalski, who was Elite League, arguably again the standard not as good, but as I've said before, he had the consistency and the trophy wins. Yeah,
that's something that, to be honest, that sort of comparison between the old and old and the new, for want of a better way, different levels, different things, is something that you'll see running all the way through my choices. And some of them, you look at now and you would say, if they played for us now, they wouldn't be very good. But you just got to compare it like for like at the time. You can't compare, somebody from the 80s with somebody now. The game's completely different. So you've got to compare them to how they were then, at their best, and sort of take that sort of difference away from it almost. For me, I understand completely what you're saying, but for me, it would still be Kowalski.
So that leads us into your first defensive pick, and I think it's one that a lot of seasoned Panthers fans will definitely agree with.
Is that what we are now? Seasoned?
Seasoned, yes. I think it's
slightly better than veteran, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Terry Kurtenbach.
Terry Kurtenbach, 7 seasons with the Panthers, 6 of those as captain. 2 Autumn Cups, the first major trophy of Panthers' modern era, and a playoff title as well in 1989. So why particularly Kurtenbach?
It sort of fits two of the things we were just talking about. He's one of the ones that was carved in stone for me. And he's also one of the ones that if he played now, well, for a start, I don't think he'd have got into the country on a work permit now, but, would he have been as good? Probably not, but that doesn't matter to me one bit. If you had some Terry Kurtenbach up in a word, it would probably be cultured. He was calm. He was controlled. One of the things I like to see in a defenseman is somebody who can just hang on to the puck and take the game to the speed he wants to play at. You could tell, how much his coaches trusted him. And remember, these are the days of 3-import hockey, and the amount of time he spent playing with the kids as they were coming up through, and because you could do that because you got Kurtenbach and he'd be able to control it. He just never seemed to get flustered.
Yeah, that's absolutely right from my memories of him as well. One of the things that does come up a lot about Terry Kurtenbach is the fact that many feel he should have had his number 9 shirt retired. Are you in that camp?
Definitely. And I think it's only the fact that he went to, he left and then went to play in Guildford that stopped that. But, you look at that 7 seasons, the numbers, I know it's a different era, different game, but the numbers he put up as a defenseman.
Well, I do have them here. They are 356 games in total for the Panthers, 290 goals, 432 assists for 722 points, which sounds crazy now, and I think, and I think to probably more of the modern day fans, they probably wouldn't be able to comprehend how a defenceman could score those sort of numbers. But this was a guy who sometimes would spend the entire 60 minutes on the ice.
At times, yeah. I mean, you just couldn't do that now, and probably shouldn't have done it then. But benches were a lot shorter. Again, we're talking about that sort of 3 import hockey era. But they're talking about those number of goals. I can still picture him now, just sort of ghosting up the middle from the blue line. Puck comes out to him in the slot, and he just hits it, and it was a goal every. Well, it feels like every time now. A bit, that's the wonders of hindsight. But he's my first defenseman because he is my favourite defenseman. I just, loved the way he played.
And of course, he was part of 2 iconic Panthers teams. The team in 1986 that won the Autumn Cup at the NEC, as it was then, against the Five Flyers. The first trophy in Panthers' modern era, and then part of the playoff winning team in 1989, which he lifted as captain. But also, coach Alex Dampier then had 2 import defencemen, which was very unusual, where most would have gone for forwards, 2 forwards and a defenceman. Dampier went for 2D and a forward, which was sort of instrumental in Panthers winning that title.
Yeah, because I think that season Darren Durdle, the other import defenceman, was actually top scorer on the team, so he actually got even more than Kurtenbach. But it normally used to be 2 import forwards, 1 import defenceman. But Dampier changed it round. Obviously, trusted his British forwards. As you were talking there, I was just thinking about that final at Wembley, and the way Kurtenbach played in that. I don't think he crossed the halfway line for the entirety of the game. I mean, obviously that's wrong, but we knew what Ayers forwards could do. So he stayed back, and it worked in the end. There were times in the game where it didn't look like it was going to, but it did, and he just had a role and played it.
Right, we're going to move on to your favourite game now. So, Paul, your favourite game in the 40 years you've been watching the Nottingham Panthers?
After a lot of deliberation, there really could be only one. Friday, March the 15th, 2013.
Which is, of course, when Panthers beat Belfast to win the league.
Yes. Yes, it was.
Why that game in particular, over the probably over 1,000 you've seen?
Yeah, I did try and work it out once a while back for an article I was writing, and I think I'm well past 1,000. I think it was another difficult choice, because you look at these things and you think, do you go for the ones that meant the most, perhaps, or do you go for the games that had everything? And this one kept coming up against things like, I remember going to Durham the first time we ever won there, because we hadn't won for years and years, and just playing them off the ice that night, and that felt great. That was such a joyous occasion to actually be there when it actually happened. And being there in Belfast was like that. But I think the reason I chose it as my favourite game is because it was a game that had everything. Top quality goals, right from Clark's blast through traffic for our first. Ling skating across, making Murphy make the move before he flipped the puck over it. That goal by Pat Gallivan, and even Francis's empty net goal, he's being hooked all the way down. Typical Darrell Lloyd, I think it was. But even to then score and watch the plexiglass in front of us nearly break because people were sort of jumping and swinging off it. But it was just a game that had everything. I think David Clark pick up Gordie Howe?
He did. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
He had a fight in the first period.
Not the play you expect to get anything from that, but it was a game worthy of any title title win. Maybe especially one that we'd been waiting for so long. It was just a great game of hockey.
And I think, obviously I was sat with you that night, and I think the thing was that Belfast had to win that game. Otherwise, the Panthers were champions, and they were the only ones who could really catch us. And that game was a complete game of chess all the way through, and both teams did give everything, absolutely everything. I just think that Panthers team just happened to have that a little bit more, and just were, not just that game, but that year, just better.
They were a team that never lost 2 games in a row. That shows that ability. Yeah, Sheffield fans will bring up the game just after Christmas, where they gave us the right stuff in, but game after we came back and won. We got back on the horse. We kept doing it, and that's what that team was like. And like you said, that Belfast team they were a good side, and it was. As I said before, it was almost fitting that it was the title victory came in a game that good. The top 2 teams going out, no quarter asked or given, and they just played a great game of hockey.
And of course, it wasn't just about the game; it was the whole day, really, because we had an unusual. We had quite a long day because we got the ferry, because we did. Let's be fair, we left it quite late before we decided that we was going to go. When we realised that was probably where we was going to win the title, so we actually got the ferry from Cairnryan. So I think it was a 5:30 in the morning start ferry across. There was me, you, Aaron Lord, and his mum Jackie in the car, and we got over there. We freshened up quickly, and it was straight to Rockies and straight into the game. Watched the game, celebrated, and all the players came to celebrate with us. And of course, that was back when we was doing Cats Whiskers TV as well. We got all the reaction from loads of players and fans, and it was just. It was one of those special nights, wasn't it? Oh, definitely. Right from one of the things I always remember is going into Rockies before the game, and just the positivity, because it was mainly Panthers fans in there at that point, and afterwards, I seem to recall. I don't think we spoke to anybody who thought it wasn't going to happen that night. It turns out we were right, but afterwards, there's that video you took. And it just shows the emotion and the importance and of that win. One of the things I remember is ringing my dad after that video has been taken, just that bit on the concourse where you go down the stairs. I rang him after I told him I'd text him through the game, and then got excited and forgot. So I got a text message. What's going on? What's going on? You're supposed to be texting me. But I remember being really proud of myself, because when I spoke to my dad, I didn't cry about it, which now I've said that sounds daft. But then I rang my wife, and as I was telling her that I'd rung my dad and I was really proud of myself that I didn't cry, I did. You see these things and you think, oh, that's a bit daft. And saying it sounds a bit daft, but at the time it made perfect sense. But going back to Craig Kowalski and his no-nonsense style, I remember him in the bar in Rockies. And he even gets drunk in a no-nonsense style. He was just sat at the end of the bar, just drinking. Just getting on with it. So yeah. Is that where he said?
Like
is that where he said something like, "Gary, you better phone Sam"? And
yes.
The next morning, Sam Gospel
yeah.
is in the Premier in reception.
At that point, was so young. His kit bag was bigger than he was. Yeah, we'd probably better not talk about David Ling that night.
We'll save that.
It was impressive that he managed to play the day after, put it that way. But hey, I remember thanking him, and he said, "Thank you" to me, and I said, "Well, what for? I haven't done anything." He said, "Yeah, have you been there you guys have been there every week, meaning the fans and the importance of that." And it just shows it is a two-way thing. It's not just about us watching them It's about them being part of us. We are all part. The fans, the players, the organisation is all part. That's what the club is. It's everything. It's not the owner. It's not just the players. Everybody who goes to that game is part of the Nottingham Panthers, or whatever team they support. That game is not. It's not just what it meant. But that is part of it. It's just everything round it that made it such a great game.
Okay, we'll leave that one there, and that brings us on to your second defensive choice. Who's that?
It's got to be Jimmy Pack.
Jimmy Pack, of course, the former Pittsburgh Penguin, 2 Stanley Cups, played 3 seasons for the Panthers in 2 spells, 123 games, 6 goals and 42 assists. Why particularly Jimmy Pack?
I think I've got a thing for cultured defensemen.
And he definitely was cultured.
He definitely was cultured. I thought a lot about this one. This was one of the ones I wavered on quite a lot, because the way when I came up with this idea of this my top line, it was all about it was your favourite players. You're not putting a line to put out on the ice necessarily. It's your favourite players, and I don't just like cultured defensemen. I like tough players. Jason Beckett could have gone in there. People like Jeff Anderson back in the 80s, Mike Bishop, people like that. But
of course, I do know a hero of yours, Graham Waghorn, as well.
Graham Waghorn, yes, indeed. Yeah, I think he's on a list somewhere down in the honourable mentions as well. Yeah, I just love the way he played. It was, Waggy, the way he'd skate with that straight back, and I also enjoyed when he put Rick Brabant into the boards from about 2 foot out, but that's because nobody really likes Rick Brabant, is it? Getting back to Jimmy Pack, which is what we were talking about. One of the things you sort of I looked at when I was thinking about this, is who you'd never seen players that were that good before. Jimmy Pack, he was the only person, certainly then, almost even now, who could block a shot and direct where it went as an outplay. I know netminders try and do it, but he could block a shot and it would go out to the side, not just wherever it had hit him and bounced off to. And the way the amount of room, he could cover, the amount of ice he could cover with his stick when he was defending, that the commentators call it an active stick or whatever now, but he covered the ice, he cut down the angles, he gave the opposition forwards that much less room.
Was it a surprise when it was revealed he'd signed for the Panthers? Because here's a player who was so experienced, like I say, so many games in the NHL with Pittsburgh, a spell with LA and Ottawa as well. But AHL, IHL then comes to the Panthers. And I remember it was obviously our first season in the new National Ice Centre. And there was quite a buzz about his signing, not just from hockey fans. It seemed to be that a lot of people knew that this guy, who was quite well known in National Hockey League circles, had signed in Britain.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was a surprise, but it was also during the Super League, wasn't it? There were players with that sort of pedigree around the league. So it wasn't entirely shock. It was, hang on, this is Jimmy Pack. He's coming here. I think a lot of times when we've been going as long as you keep reminding people I have, it's easy to get a bit jaded, and I probably have. But it's moments like that where you suddenly go, it takes you back to being that 11, 12-year-old boy that I was back at the beginning of the excitement of Jimmy Pack. The stats were out on the internet even then, and you just looked and you thought, why is he coming here? Why has he chosen to come here? But I'm definitely glad he did.
Let's find out who your player from another team who you would have liked to have seen play for the Panthers is. And I must admit, I had to look him up. So I don't think it's one that will be that obvious. And your choice is former netminder for the Durham Wasps in the 1982-83 season. It is?
Ron Catanyuk.
Ron Catanyuk, so played for Durham in 82-83, as I mentioned, was also head coach of the Peterborough Pirates as well as their netminder. Why particularly Ron Catanyuk?
It goes back to what I was saying a minute ago about players that sort of take things forward a step, players you'd never seen the quality of necessarily before. And like I was talking about with Terry Kernbach, this was the days of 3-import hockey. And
an import netminder was
unheard of.
Well, totally unheard of. Yeah,
yeah. I'm almost entirely sure in my time in the stuff I can remember that it was the first. I mean, having 2 defensemen and 1 forward, as I was saying, that was odd. If you want to look at anything in ice hockey in this country in the time I've been watching that's changed most, it's got to be netminding. You look at some of the old clips. There's a game on YouTube of us playing Murrayfield, where the Panthers player, I think it might be Simon Hunt, cuts across the net, and the keeper, who's at one post, literally just falls over. There's none of this going to the sort of knees and sliding across. He just sort of falls over, almost like a football goalkeeper would. But Catanyuk, he just took netminding to another level. I mean, if he was playing over here now, he probably wouldn't be very good at all. But he just changed netminding that little bit. He did stuff. I didn't see him all that much. But I remember hearing a story. He was playing in a game where he was down on the ice. The player shot. The player turned to celebrate and then looked around to see why the home crowd weren't cheering. It's because Catanyuk had lifted his leg up and saved it. Stuff that just didn't happen. And at times, it looked like he was probably from another planet. I chose him because of that, because of the amount that he changed, how different he was.
And if you look at these stats, they're nothing to write home about these days. A goals against average of 3.89 and a .887% save percentage. But at that time, they were outstanding figures. Again,
that's how I think you have to compare things. You have to compare sort of for the time that like for like, not then versus now. And he was just a step above. And to have had him on our team, it would have improved it immeasurably.
We'll move on to your first forward selection. I don't think there's going to be much surprise on who you've chosen as your first.
David Ling.
Of course, David Ling. 2 spells with the Nottingham Panthers, the 2012-13 season and the 2015-16 season. We all know about David Ling. We all know his quality. Why in particular have you chosen David Ling?
Because of his quality. His game had got everything. He got great skills, a great shot. He could fight a bit. Look what he did to Lovedale in Hull that time. I mean, yeah, you could call him lazy, or you could say that he knew where his qualities were best suited. And that wasn't back checking. But I think the thing as well is that it was the way he played the game. There was that spirit in him, that mischievousness. Or you could call that, or you could just say he was filth at times. I mean, first game in, what does he do? He looks the Dundee netminder smack in the eye and takes a swig out of his water bottle right in front of him.
And nobody did anything.
And nobody did anything, and that sets the tone. I mean, it's a terrible thing to do, but we all know about the water skiing incident, the way he'd chirp fans. I mean, that game in Fife that season, the one you were at, where he was in the penalty box, he was getting a bit of abuse from the Fife fans. He says, I'm going to go back on the ice and I'm going to score. And he did. It was just that thing. And the way he could wind opposition players up without seeming to be wound up himself. He'd be there, he'd be talking at them, they'd be straining round a linesman to get hold of him, and he looked like he was barely breaking sweat.
There was something very special about him, and you only have to look at his figures. In that Elite League season, 52 games, 34 goals, 55 assists for 89 points, but also 113 penalty minutes. Of course, then 3 seasons later, he's back for his second spell, and a lot was said that he wouldn't be as good, he would have lost something, but he was pretty much exactly the same.
It was still there, wasn't it? You know, into his 40s at that point, and he still got it. I mean, take his last game, the one in Dundee. He scored a goal off the keeper's back, a couple of assists. I forget the exact stats, aren't my strong point, so I forget these things. And then gets himself thrown out. It's almost a David Ling career in a single game.
Yeah, absolutely right. But I think the thing is as well, when he originally came to the Panthers, he was in his late 30s, I think 37, 38. And I remember a lot of fans of other teams saying he's not going to do anything for you, but how incredibly wrong they were.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you could argue he's the best player ever to play for the Panthers. You could argue that. Not my favourite, but I would probably say he was the best. But at the end of the day, he's no Jeff Hutchins, is he?
He's definitely no Jeff Hutchins, as Sheffield find out. One question that I will ask you about David Ling before we move on. Do you believe he is the reason that Panthers won the league that year?
I think he's a big part of it. Very, very big part of it. I don't think he's the only part. I think a huge chunk of the credit has to go to Jordan Fox as well, because he was another, Fox was another player who could grab hold of a game and just change it how he wanted it to go. Players can have an influence, but they can't be the only thing. I don't think it was all about that team. There were great players all the way through. Eric Werner, Craig Kowalski, Jason Beckett, Brandon Benedict, Bruce Graham, Matt Francis. They're all great players that came together at the right time, gelled in the way that you always hope will happen. And he was a huge part of it, but he wasn't the only part. Everything just clicked. Okay,
we're going to move on to your favourite goal now. But before you reveal who it is, we'll actually play what it is. Here's the commentary.
Davies winds up against Fox. Benedict gets the first shot away. Fox is going to get the second. Chance for Beauregard. Scores! David Alexander Beauregard.
We all know who it is now. It's David Alexander Beauregard against the Cardiff Devils in the 2012 playoff final. And as we heard from the clip there, the noise is something else when that goes in. But why particularly is that one the one you've picked as your favourite?
Still gives you goosebumps listening to that, doesn't it?
It does. You're right, it does.
Yeah, it's just that game. I mean, that was into the third period, 0-0. It's what broke the tie, and it broke the tension. That was such a tense game, and I think you're talking about the roar after that and how shrill it is. Because it's beyond that. Yes, we've scored. It's yes, we've scored. We've broken that deadlock. And I was putting all these things together. I watched a clip of that again, and there's so much in that we didn't see at the time. I mean, it's a great move he makes. That clip doesn't do it justice. It's a great move he makes right in front of the keeper to deke the keeper out, put it into almost an open net. He makes such a good move out in front, but it's more than that. It's the way he then turns and skate to the bench with his arms out, 1 foot in the air, goes down the bench, and then as he skates away, the fist pump, you can see the emotion and what it means to him, and it was really good watching that on the clip because I saw none of that. I was just jumping up and down going, man, I think I got you in a headlock at one point.
You did have me in a headlock, yes.
Yeah.
I think we sort of stopped, and I was almost bent double with your arm around my neck, and we sort of looked at each other like, what are we doing? And then I think you released me. But and then we just...
have I ever apologised to you for that?
No, you haven't.
No, well, yeah, never mind. But yeah, but that's what, that's why I chose it. Are there better goals? Yeah, Jordan Fox against Sheffield springs to mind. Are there more important ones? Probably Pat Gallivan. I chose it because of that explosion of emotion that it brought out, even more than Gallivan scoring. It was more, that one was more emotional, which you'd think, given how long we were waiting for the league, would be the other way round, but it wasn't. That was the one that just got to us.
Well, that leads us beautifully into your second forward choice. Who is your second forward choice? And I'm sure everyone listening to this has guessed already, but it's out of our misery.
It's David Alexander Beauregard.
Of course it is. Of course it is. So you've chosen his goal as your favourite goal, but why have you chosen David Alexander Beauregard as one of your three forwards?
It's just how good he was. I think he'd be up there for me regardless of what happened. Obviously, he ended up in our league because of what happened to him when he lost an eye. This might sound daft after saying that, but he got the best hand-eye coordination possibly of any player I've ever seen. How many goals did he score coming in on the back stick, putting it into past the keeper where nobody had seen him come in? He just came in, he just got to the right place at the right time. Like David Ling, you could say that he wasn't the best at back checking. I mean, if he was on the ice, I don't think there was ever a point where he wasn't the last one out of the offensive zone. But that you didn't sign David Alexander Beauregard for his back checking. You signed him because he was, in a word, a sniper. You look up sniper in the dictionary, there's a picture of him there. That's what he was there to do, and that's what he did.
But also, I think he was a committed team guy as well, because you mentioned about him not back checking, but talking about that 2012 playoff final, there's a bit I think it's 2 or 3 minutes, probably his next shift after he scored that opening goal, where he's laying down blocking a shot from the blue line.
He just knew what to do. He was, hockey was his thing, and he knew how to do it. And he's just the sort of player that you watch, you just love to watch. When he was on the ice, you enjoy it. You could see how much he enjoyed it. Maybe going to that place where you almost losing something makes you enjoy it more. But just watch it. Just love to watch him play.
Do you think he's probably one of the most natural snipers that we've ever seen play in Nottingham? I mean, considering the fact that not only did he score the game-winning goal in the playoff final, which you've chosen as your favourite goal, the season before he also scored the game-winning goal in the playoff final. To score 2 game-winning goals in the playoff final, I mean, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, from a very long question to a very short answer, yes. Simply, name me one that's better.
Yeah, and it's very difficult. Very difficult to say who.
Yeah, just that pure sniper. And I think that's why anybody who's come into this role since has struggled with the fans, because they've not been as good. The comparison is there, which isn't fair. It isn't fair to the people coming in at all, but the comparison is there. You pick one of them or Beauregard at his best, you pick Beauregard every time.
So it's time for your final choice of your 6. We've still got a bit to go after this one, but forward number 3. And I think it's fair to say you've chosen a legend.
Well, I think so, yeah. Paul Balm.
Of course, Paul Balm, the Nottingham legend, shirt retired in the rafters, the number 22. Several seasons for the Panthers, and also one for the Sheffield Steelers as well, but we won't mention that. But came to Nottingham in the 88-89 season. And Paul, why have you chosen your namesake?
This is all about picking your heroes, but this is as close as I think I've ever been to hero worship. It wasn't quite. I was a bit too old for it to be, sort of proper childhood hero territory. If you're going to look for somebody like that, you're looking at maybe Doug Withenshaw right back in the beginning. Another one player who wore the 22. 80. I just played. He was a player who never gave up. We wondered what we'd got when we first signed him. I think he had about 2 fights in his first 3 games or something. Something he now claims to not remember. I seem to recall from something.
Yes,
but,
he did say that, didn't he? He didn't remember, but
he did.
I think it was too. Yeah. He obviously got hit very hard in those fights.
Those were the days, but he'd got that spirit, and again, just a player I loved watching. I remember once saw him score whilst on his knees against the boards in Durham. Just flicks the puck into the net. I mean, that's probably because the net minding wasn't as good then, but it's difficult to put it into words. He was just a player that I loved. I made my mum sew the numbers and the name bar on the back of my shirt all those years ago. It was always AD, and he was just. There are other players that are better in this list. There's no player I love more than Paul Adey.
And I think for me, he was one of those few players who made a seamless transition from 3-import hockey to dual national hockey in the British League, and then to the Super League, where he was still one of the top scorers. You're right, he was just an incredible player, and over several seasons thoroughly deserved to have his shirt hanging in those rafters.
Yeah, Kurtenbach's not been up there is a travesty. If Adey's hadn't been, then well, who knows what they've been writing in the streets. He just, and like I say, he made that transition. He kept going, kept putting the points up. Even there was a season where he was injured for a long period of time. Came back in probably too soon, and they tried to rush him in. That's how important it was. They tried to rush him in just for the playoffs because he was the talisman of the team.
Yeah, absolutely was. And the thing is, he is the highest point scorer, highest goal scorer in Panthers history, and
probably always will be.
And probably always will be. You only have to look at the 94-95 season where Panthers came so close, but on the line with Rick Brabant in 44 regular season games, 73 goals and 73 assists. That's you'll never see those figures again, will you? No, you won't. I mean, we're going back to about Cat and Young. Those were the days when we won a game 31-2. Crazy. We've had months where we haven't scored 31 these days. Yeah, I mean, something's just struck me, and as we're looking back through all these names, it's something again I think about hockey. So hockey is very much a family thing to me. I started going with my mum and dad and my brother all those years ago. I go with my kids now. They sit next to you and irritate you. But just looking at it, Adey is my wife's favourite player, although I'm not entirely sure for the same reasons, if I'm honest. Kurtenbach was my mum's, and let's face it, Sam does quite like DAB. But I don't know, I mean, maybe that's shaped my thoughts or whatever, but, it just shows, sort of almost says to me about, hockey is a family thing to me. Okay, so that is your team. We still got a couple of things to go, but your team as it stands, your netminder Craig Kowalski, first defenceman Terry Kurtenbach, second defenceman Jimmy Pack, first forward David Ling, second forward David Alexandra Beauregard, and your final forward is Paul Adey.
Can I make a change?
No, you can't. That's it.
Oh, okay. No, fine. Well, what's done is done. Like I said, yeah, they're the ones. It's all set out now. That is my team.
That is
I'll
your
take
team.
that. I'd put them out on the ice.
And a formidable team, I think it would be. Looking at it, a lot of quality and a lot of trophies within that team as well. Okay, to finish off, a couple of things to finish off. Firstly, your honourable mentions. So, who just missed out? Who did you consider?
Oh, so many. When you've been going as long as I have, there's a lot of names. So people like going all the way back, Jeff Anderson, Doug Withenshaw. So he was my first favourite player. It could have been something to do with the fact that he worked in a bakery and used to sell chocolate covered donuts that he made at the bakery in the old stadium. But maybe that was as well. People like Jamie Crapper, I liked him a lot more as a player than a referee. Graham Waghorn. Graham, I mean, you remember that night I met him for the first time. I think you'd met him before.
Yes, playoff after a playoff final, I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was last time we won the playoffs. Yeah, met Cam Jansen same night, and everyone's I've met Cam Jansen, and I was like, I've met Graham Waghorn.
I think you were more impressed that he called you by your first name as well.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's it. It doesn't always happen that way. But and as well as Waggy, somebody he played with a lot, Garth Premack, Mike Rees, Mike Bishop, Jimmy Keys, and all the way through up to now people like Sam Hare, Adam Deutsch, who at times reminds me of Kurtenbach. But so many to choose from. I've probably forgotten a load there. I wrote them all down, and there's probably loads more I've forgotten. But it came down to two again: Jimmy Keys, or the one I actually chose, which I found out since is Joe's favourite player. Which, if you know Joe, this is going to really surprise you. David Clarke.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Clarkey will be one of those as we do this, as we bring more guests on, especially when they're talking about Panthers. I think David Clarke can find himself in quite a lot of teams or just missing out, and it's unfortunate, but he has just missed out on yours.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, David. If you'd have let me have a favourite Brit category when we discussed it, he'd have been straight in there. But the thing about Clarke was, people talk about Bounds and Murphy, having them gives you the opportunity to have an extra import forward, extra import defenceman. Having Clarke meant the same, but he was import quality. We've seen since he retired the size of the hole that we've been left trying to fill, and you just saw him improve. I mean, it would be very easy, and I've heard it said by fans of other teams that he could just shoot. No, that might have been right 10 or more years ago, but you saw his game improve and round and change, and became, as he went on, he became a better player season after season after season.
Okay, and we're going to finish the whole thing with your favourite moment. So we've talked about a few already of great moments throughout Panthers history that we was there and you was there to witness. But what is your overall favourite moment in all your time watching the Nottingham Panthers?
Again, difficult choice. Are you getting fed up with me saying that yet? One of the things I was going to say about David Clarke was he's the only player ever to wink at me during a game. That was quite a fun moment. I've got two. Again, it came down to two. One was that game in Hull just before we won the league. Well, we were sat packed in like you've never been packed in before in Hull. So unsurprisingly, a load of people travelled up. And I'd got you constantly refreshing your phone. I mean, I wasn't going to waste my data. To find out what the score in Edinburgh was, because they were playing Belfast. And Edinburgh were winning. We were winning. And then it came through, Edinburgh had won. and there's that ripple round you. Edinburgh's won. And you almost saw it ripple down across through the fans till somebody at the other end had obviously got the same signal come through, and it just erupted. And at the same time, DAB scored what turned out to be his last goal for the Panthers, and a perfect DAB goal. And it was, it was at that point, I think a lot of us, I still wasn't confident, I had to say that, but it was a massive step towards it. And also in that game, Hull scored to break Kowalski's shutout with 4 seconds left.
And 1956 on the clock. Yeah, I remember it well.
But that is not my favourite moments, because that didn't happen on the ice. That was off. So I thought, it's got to be an on-ice moment. So for me, it has to be the 2007 playoffs and Rasto making that save in the penalty, in the penalty shots. Because, again, that was a game that was so close, so tense. Went to penalty shots, obviously it was. And I remember 2 things really about that game. One is the amount of fluids I must have lost, because it was so hot, so nervous. We were sweating so well. I was, sweating so much. Sorry, I was about to tell you that. And it was the fact that my mum had died in 2005, and I think I spent most of that third period in the and overtime talking to her. I couldn't tell you what it was I was talking to her about, and I don't suppose that really matters. But I just remember it wasn't for her. She was one of thousands of fans, but to me it was almost, and that's it was just that moment and that photograph, the one of him on his knees, arms outstretched, with the and it's just lined up properly that the sparks appeared to be, from the fireworks appeared to be coming out of his glove. And just as a side on that, season after, both my kids have got that, and we went to a signing, and Sam got Rashdo to sign it, and then he got Sean McCaslin, because he's right in the side of the shot, sort of looking backwards, looking excited, and he got McCaslin to sign him, and he just looked at me and went, "Why? That's all about him. Hockey's a team sport. I talked about that earlier, but sometimes it does come down to that one individual, and that was a moment where we had a player who just went, no, we're going to win this, and we did."
Paul, some great choices. Thanks for being the first guest.
No problem. Thanks for having me.